And we're here for overtime here on the Scout Team Podcast. I'm Emory Hunter-Zar, the playbook, joined by the Scout Team themselves, Chris James, Brandon Howard, Gene Clemons, Teron Davenport. On the show this week, we had our first round mock draft, or first round best fits mock for teams that had multiple first round picks in the draft. And so we have some takeaways. We got some takeaways because obviously we don't all agree. So I'll start with you, Chris. What was your biggest takeaway? Let's say something you want to address or ask why to any one of us on the panel with one of their selections.
I want to ask why you want to give the Ravens 9 corners.
Me? Well, straight up, like I always think about the last thing I saw. So the last time I saw the Ravens playing defense, they found whoever that dude was wearing that 40 number. It made it his birthday, and he threw at him to the point where it was like, yo, Buffalo can go up and down the field. And Jimmy Smith, while talented, just stays hurt. So I was like, you know what? He's at the end of his run. He's like 33 years old or 34 years old. They need a young dog. And Tavon Young he's a dog, but he's never out there, you know? So I even forgot what number he wears, but I know he's out for the year constantly. So I'm going with Asante Samuel.
I mean, I get it because the Ravens, the way that Wink Martindale wants to attack stuff, he comes at you and he leaves them on an island. So I get it. It's just I really want to get some help for Lamar up front. That's why I was we got to get some offensive line help because that did not look right when Ben Powers was out there getting pushed back into Lamar half the season.
What about you, Brandon? What's your bone you got to pick with the Scout Team?
It's not a bone that I have to pick, but I'm wondering what's everybody's justification or reasoning as to why they believe that Kyle Pitts will be there at 6 for Miami.
I mean, I'll go. The reason I think he'll be there is because I'm not convinced that Atlanta won't trade out for one of those quarterbacks. Someone's gonna jump up at 4. You know, especially if San Francisco makes the decision to go with Mac Jones, someone's gonna say, "Wait a minute, nah, bro, I'm coming up to 4." So then Pitts kind of naturally falls, and I think Jamar Chase ends up landing in Cincinnati because he's gonna have Joe Burrow's kind of blessing, and that lets him slide down to 6.
I agree. I actually think that because there's this craze for quarterbacks, I think they're going to reach for probably 3 of them. There's only 2 guys that are worthy of top 5 picks, in my opinion, in this draft. Somehow 5 of them have been thrust into the first 5 picks. And so if we do get what people are predicting, and we know that people make their predictions based off of what they believe teams are going to do, not what they actually should do like we do.
Right.
You know, I think you're going to go quarterback, probably offensive tackle at some point in there, which is going to let Pitts drop to Miami, which I think, again, is a perfect fit for him and for a quarterback who likes to have a safety blanket to drop it down to.
You know what? I'm going to answer this one too because y'all just follow me here. All right. Y'all remember Jeremy Shockey, right? Y'all remember Kellen Winslow Jr., right? Y'all remember Antonio Gates. Y'all remember Jimmy Graham. Y'all remember Hunter Henry when he was coming out of Arkansas. Y'all remember Darren Waller this past season. I said all that to say this. Kyle Pitts is fantastic. However, I think the talk about Kyle Pitts in this draft is making it seem like he's going to be something we have never seen before. Mm-hmm. I remember being super excited about all of these tight ends. Maybe not Hunter Henry to that respect, but everybody else, I thought like, yo, this dude gonna change the game. Shockey. Then you think about Winslow. Oh, he gonna change the game. He a soldier. You know what I'm saying? Then you look at OJ Howard was another one. I was like, yo, he ready to change the game, and because all of it checked off. So while I think Pitts is great, I kind of agree with Gene. I think he's gonna be there for Miami at 6. All right, TD, what's your big bone you got to take away?
Well, you know, I get it. Sammy Watkins is a proven player, but we talk about Tavon Young not being able to stay healthy. But, you know, Sammy Watkins, he really struggles to stay healthy also. And I can see, you know, T. Martin pulling him aside like, hey, son, the best ability is availability, and you ain't got it. That's really how I look at it. So I think it is necessary to address the receiver position with one of those picks, whether it's 27 or 31. So I'm curious, what made you want to, stick with Sammy Watkins and not take a guy like Terrace Marshall or even, somebody like Rashad Bateman if he should be there?
I can tell you, for me, there's just a lot of wide receivers, and we know size isn't a skill. They keep trying to make it a skill, but it's not. And there are a ton of wide receivers to be had in this draft. So I think second round, third round, fourth round, maybe even fifth round, you can find a guy that could step in and do better than what Snead was doing. I mean, you can step in and you can find some people in this draft to replace guys who were not getting it done last year and really bolster the receiver corps from there. I don't think you necessarily have to address that in the first round, because I really do think that this is the draft where offensive line play is falling off a lot faster than you've seen it in past years. I just don't think it's as deep as it's been, even though I know that there'll be guys that end up starting as undrafted free agents, because that's just the way the NFL is. I'll take my chances with those linemen being undervalued and getting them in the back end of the first round for me.
I'm going to step in here for a second. Don't discount the South Florida connection. Trevon Grimes, I mentioned him last podcast about a possibility in Baltimore. So you're talking about two guys that are familiar with one another, and Lamar and Grimes being here in South Florida. At one point, only a couple years separate them. I could definitely see that takes place in this draft. That might be an option for them before Baltimore got that second pick in the first round. I think that's still a possibility. Even though I said Terrace Marshall, look out for Grimes potentially landing in Baltimore.
You know what's interesting about that for me? It was because of what Gene said. I could find some receivers, but I also didn't want to stunt the growth potentially of these young guns that they drafted just a few years ago, and Duvernay and Prochet. They got to get these dudes on the field, somehow, some way. And Boykin, you got to find a way to put Boykin in. Willie Snead is tough. He's been reliable for Lamar Jackson. But if I have to see Willie Snead, catch every pass like he recovered an onside kick, I'm going to be upset, So I need for them to go find some other receivers. But I do like what you're thinking, Brandon, thinking about these taller guys out there, these tall trees that they have in Grimes and these other big receivers. But I don't want to sacrifice potentially the growth of a Prochet or a Duvernay, because we've seen them draft receivers and not use them. So it's like, all right, if y'all going, is it like the Saints or Eagles not drafting the linebackers? Like, all right, if that's how y'all gonna play, then we just gonna have to roll with it. So I just find
a shout out to Notre Dame, by the way, for being the most consistent program over the last half decade on putting out offensive linemen. Whatever y'all are doing, excellent. That's why I went with a Notre Dame offensive lineman. But I feel like Duvernay and Prochet were drafted by the wrong team. And here's my rationale for it. What they do, the Ravens refuse to use them with. So that's why I want to get Terrace Marshall in there, because maybe they'll actually utilize him correctly, because they have not done anything to utilize those guys correctly. That's why Willie Snead keeps being on the field for some apparent reason. As far as Boykin, there's some things that I see from Boykin that I like, but there's some things that I see where I'm confused as to what he's doing. He's too talented to do some of the stuff that I've seen him do, and that seems why he's not on the field as often as he should.
It seemed like they saw Duvernay score. It's like, boy, what you doing? Like
against Kansas City when he took the kickback, and then they give him the ball and he could pass.
Who told you show your playmaking ability?
Yeah, I agree, man, with what CJ said as far as like not being able to use Duvernay properly. And same thing with Prochet. But I mean, I still think Marshall, there's a good enough difference between a Terrace Marshall and a guy like Nico Collins, or a guy like Cornell Powell, that will warrant using that first round pick. And you guys know I love Cornell Powell. I've been talking about him all year. Nico Collins is an excellent player as well. I just think you don't bring in somebody that's going to compete with Prochet and Duvernay. You bring in somebody that's going to take that job and just be someone that you can marry. Because I feel like you mentioned, Emory, doing what you can to commit to your quarterback and show him that you're committed to him. What better way to do so than to bring in a guy who is clearly a first-round talent, one of the top receivers in the draft? I think that's one way you could really show him, like, look, we know what you could do. These are the things that they're saying you can't. This guy's going to help you do it, and that's why we brought him in. So that's really why I feel that way. And then, you look at the offensive lineman. I know there's not a lot of depth, but look at a guy like Robert Jones out of MTSU. I think he's a guard that, he'll come in and be a really good player. You got David Moore out of Grambling, who will also be a really good player for them. But then even taking it to the tackle position, I feel that Deontay Smith out of East Carolina, no one's talking about him, but that dude is really good. And he went down to the Senior Bowl and showed off as well.
He's legit.
Best thing you could do to show your quarterback you care is trade up for Justin Fields, apparently. But I'm gonna just be quiet.
That's a whole nother discussion. Like, oh my goodness, that was
but that brings me into my point, which is, a couple of you guys didn't address offensive line, and God, I know y'all are talking about the young guys who have not really had an opportunity to prove themselves, but you guys were quoting Villanueva and Ziegler, and did you guys see those two? I'm just going to ask you, if you were playing quarterback and you looked over to your right side and you saw Villanueva at right tackle and Zeitler at right guard, would you feel good about being in the pocket? Because I would not. I wouldn't feel good at all.
Here's the thing. I specifically mentioned those names along with Dennis Kelly because what I'm saying is that's their attempt to address it. You know what I'm saying? That's what I believe is their attempt. Do I believe that? I can't stand Villanueva as a player. Let's be frank. I don't like him as a person. For some of the stuff I've seen him do. So I don't like him. I'm not saying that that's a legitimate thing that they should do, but that's their version of trying to address that position. I personally feel if they bring in Dennis Kelly, I think he could hold down the right tackle spot and do a good job because I saw him do it the last couple of years.
For me, Zeitler, I don't mind being at right guard because I think he's excellent. But Villanueva, not really. I'm banking on a rookie taking a job. Shout out to the troops though, but I'm thinking of a rookie stepping in more so than Villanueva. Especially again, they drafted well, so that seems to be the one position where I can trust their development of the guys behind them. So we'll see what they have. But like TD said, I think it's more of a stopgap. And I'm going for, and also the reason why I went defense twice, because I think there's a drop off, especially at edge rusher in this draft. So I wanted to make sure I grabbed the best one I believe and try it. And then I wanted to take another premier corner because everybody's talking about Asante Samuel's height. And so I was like, all right, cool. Let me grab this dude that always end up with the ball in his hands on defense and grab him right away.
Because
it goes back to what you say, like, can he take the ball away? Right. Can they make plays? Can they take the ball away? That's who you want on the team.
Because I know in round, and granted, they don't have a second round pick now since they traded Orlando Brown. So we're talking third round that we're going to have to dive in. So maybe you look at the Robert Joneses, the Deonta Smiths from East Carolina, or those guys as possible steals in the third round. Because the second round pick kind of forces you to take a bigger swing in first round. So I can understand why receiver, because definitely you don't have that second round pick. And we know a lot of receivers will go mostly in that second round.
Quick question. How many people have an aversion to the corner or safety who literally always has the ball, no matter how they look, right? So whether it was Winfield last year or when Tyrann Mathieu came out,
or Rat.
If you always have the ball and the intention of the other team was for you not to, I want you.
Nah, right? You got to wait till the numbers come out. See what the numbers say.
And that's why, to your point, CJ, you mentioned Richie Grant earlier. Everybody's talking this Trevor Morrig stuff, but he, in my opinion, is the best safety in this draft.
That dude gets, what you're getting with him, at least my opinion.
I mean, I tweeted it earlier when I said, when these people are doing mock drafts, are you trying to do a mock draft because you believe that's what the team's going to do? Or are you trying to do a mock draft because you really believe this is what the team should do? And to me, the people who make mock drafts, when they put down what they believe the team should do, those are much more entertaining than well, this is just what we think the team is going to do, because
It requires
you can have the accuracy of saying, I know like a Benjamin Albright, he's always really accurate with his draft. Well, because he's putting down what he thinks the teams are going to do. If we did that, we'd be more accurate. But if you look at how many of those players are actually good or actually perform well, you don't get the same. And shout out to Ben. This is not a knock at Ben. That's just what he does. And he's not alone in it. But the reason why so many of their drafts end up being accurate as far as what people are going to do, but inaccurate as far as who's better, is because they're not putting the people who are better in the front of the draft. If you're good, you should be up there. It doesn't matter how tall you are. It doesn't matter what position you play. It doesn't matter if the color of your skin. It doesn't matter how marketable you are. If you're a ball player, you need to be up there. And I think that a lot of this is getting skewed, which is why you see so much talent end up going in the second, third, and fourth round that we have going earlier that other people may have going later.
That's what makes us different.
Yeah, and I think it kind of converts you from being an analyst to more of a reporter, because
absolutely
you lose the nuance behind it, because it's not that any of these guys, or a lot of them, they're far from dumb, and they know what they're looking at in a lot of respects. But yes, when you would rather be accurate instead of actually giving, like actual nuance and the things behind it, you're not informing the fans of what they actually need to know about these players, and you're just putting something down on paper just so you can be accurate.
You know how easy it is to be accurate as far as, like, let's say you want to try to marry the two. You know how easy it is to slap a 7th round grade, priority free agent grade on every player from a smaller school? Like, you don't even have to watch the film. Oh, Saginaw Valley State, 7th round, priority free agent. And people go, wow, you nailed that one. Like, no, the league not going to take somebody from Saginaw Valley State in the 1st round. So, of course, you're going to be right. And, of course, if you slap a 1st round grade on everybody that's been talked about on all these major networks all throughout the draft process, yes, that person will go in the 1st round. That tells us nothing about evaluating the talent. That's what my tweet was the other day. That was the thought behind it. Like, I can sit up here and take half of this of these 600 prospects that I graded, take a good 2/3 of that and slap a 7th round priority free agent grade on it, or a 3rd round grade on it, and leave the 1st round grade for the people that I know are going to go in the 1st round. Be like, wow, this dude here got all the answers. Like, no, man, I told you absolutely nothing. Like, so I'm all about evaluating.
Here's something that I want to get into: Elijah Moore, right? Because every time I mention him as an option for the Titans at 22, well, you wouldn't draft a slot receiver in the first off, he's not just a slot receiver. But second off, you got to look at how this game has changed to where there's so much more emphasis of being able to make case, so I think he does have that 1st round value. But I want to get from you guys, what do you think about Elijah Moore as a 1st round option?
I think so too, because just jump right in, because I think it's a starter position. We drafted nickel corners in the 1st round. Why? Because slot receivers are slaughtering these dudes. So you draft starters in the 1st round. And if this dude is a 1st round talent from all intents and purposes of what he can do as a runner, like, this dude could play running back if he wanted to. He got good vision, good feel with the ball in his hands, and he also can win deep, short, shallow in the slot. So I think, you want that person who can do multiple things at that level in the 1st round.
I think for me, the reason that you're not seeing as much love for Elijah Moore this draft cycle is because it's so deep. Like, there's so many guys who look like Elijah Moore that they think they're Elijah Moore. And it's like, no. That guy's different than those guys. They just happen to be the same height, and again, we get so, I shouldn't say we, but these draft nicks, we get so enamored with height that they take the game out of it. And they get so enamored with numbers that they take the game out of it. And so it's like, we see a whole bunch of guys who look like Elijah Moore, so that devalues him, when in reality, they just look like him. That doesn't mean that they play like him. And so I think that's why you see it going down. But for me, I'm slapping him in the slot somewhere. Like, and that's why good teams, I talk about this all the time. It's the reason why bad teams stay bad. But the reason why the good teams stay good is watch the team that Elijah Moore goes to. I guarantee you he goes to a team that doesn't actually really need him, but they went, oh, y'all just gonna let him drop to us? Okay, cool. We'll take him. I mean, like why does Clyde Edwards-Helaire end up with Kansas City? Because people are acting like he can't. Oh, he's so small. He's so short. You can't take a running back first round. Kansas City's like, oh, y'all just gonna let this dude drop to us? Come on over. Come on home. Watch how much he improves year 2. Like, that's what people aren't thinking about. Like, watch how much he improves year 2. It's going to be ridiculous. Yeah. He's got an entire offseason now. It's crazy. It's ridiculous.
And to your point, Gene, yes, depth plays into it. The same thing happened to the 2014 receiver class, where guys like Stephon Diggs falls down. But that's also because, look, okay, so there was something that I saw. Maybe I'm going to get it wrong, but someone said Elijah Moore's a volume catcher. I don't even know what the heck that means.
Yeah.
But
volume sounds good to me.
Usually when a receiver gets the ball a bunch, he's probably good. It's going to end up being a silly situation where he's probably going to fall out of the first round. It's going to be dumb. We all understand that. But at the same point in time, it's going to be slapped with, this is not a perfect science. Well, if you change the narrative and stop doing stuff like that, it would be better. You could actually improve.
TD, I'm going to go back to when we were covering the combine together, and I told Stephon Diggs, you're a first round talent, but you're clearly going to slip, to a little later than that. Why do you think that is? And Elijah Moore, I don't think it's due to no fault of his own. I think that because you see with the way that you see flag football taking off the way it is, and the some of the things that are going on with that, and how big it is now. And all these receivers are developing in ways that they had before. So it's like a year-long thing almost now. So with that going on, you're seeing more and more receivers that are further along by the time they come out of college than they had been in the past. So you're going to see this trend moving forward with a lot of receivers that could potentially have first-round grades, but they all can't go in the first round, So I think that's what you see with Elijah Moore. He is obviously a first-round talent. The way he gets in and out of his breaks, his hands, the way that he can win at every level of the field. Mm-hmm. Clear first-round talent, but he's going to slip. But the team that gets him, watch it be one of those teams that, that's why good teams stay good, bad teams stay bad. You'll see one of these teams that are typically good year in and year out get that guy onto their roster.
It's weird how Andy Reid always comes up. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just saying it's weird how Andy Reid always, hey, let's just move up to 10 to go get this weird guy out of Tech. Let's take this running back. Good teams stay good because they have good coaches, good personnel members, all of that, to your point.
Absolutely.
So if you love that conversation, fans, that's the reason why you tune in at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time on the Game Plus Network for the Scout Team Show. This was the Scout Team post-practice powwow for the guys. So just want to give thanks to everyone that has tuned in, checked out, subscribed, all those good things. Make sure you follow Brandon, Chris, Teron, and Gene on Twitter and also on other social media platforms. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and be sure to check out the Scout Team Show on the Game Plus Network. So for everyone involved, we out.